Hey, what's up, guys? I know that this is not everybody's favorite topic, and frankly, it really is kind of confusing to me. So I spent a little bit of time yesterday, just sort of out of curiosity, looking up the WAR side of fielding totals that I could find on Baseball Reference. I'll note that you can't do a simple search to see who has, say, the lowest total of R field of all time. There's like no way to do that. I'll also note, as I think I've said before, that it becomes really confusing because you get a whole bunch of different statistics that look like they're telling you the same thing, but apparently are not. So I'm just going to show you sort of what my confusion is here, and we'll be able to figure this out. We're looking at Derek Jeter. Jeter has been considered to be a very poor fielding shortstop by Saber metrics over the years, despite all of the Gold Gloves that he won. In particular, I was looking at his 2005 season, which was quite good offensively, and which I actually recall. But when we look into his player value, he had a WAR of 3.8. This is largely offset from what I can see here. Tell me if I'm wrong, by his minus 27 R field and this DWAR, defensive wins above replacement, of minus 1.8. Which is pretty bad. This is part of the place where we get a little bit confused, right? So there are people who tell me that it doesn't really mean anything, the fact that that number will fluctuate from year to year. But I would say that it probably should, right? 2005 was really, really bad for him. The years before then were below average, which I honestly think is probably correct. But he has this really bad year that sticks out, and then another year that's not too bad. Another bad year that sticks out, and then he's right around replacement level, and then above replacement level in 2009 when he's 35, right? That's a little bit odd to me. Now, I understand that wins above replacement is going to be different than R field, which is the total number of runs from fielding, but I do have some questions about why this number fluctuates so much. However, the part about this that really kind of drives me nuts, where I really become confused, is that I can't look and see if Jeter had the worst R field in Major League Baseball in 2005 or not. The reason why is because I'm looking at shortstops here, but when I go take a look at standard fielding, there's no way to sort by that amount. I can look in terms of total fielding runs above average and see that the Yankees had minus 67, which is interesting. So when we look at the 2005 American League, if you've forgotten about this, this is sort of the thing that kind of drives me nuts. Let's look at the standings. There we go. The Yankees were at 95 and 67 in 2005 and were a good team. They were tied for first with the Red Sox. Not exactly an awful team, but in terms of fielding, apparently this was the third worst team in all of Major League Baseball, according to total zone, total fielding runs above average. But right there, we're talking about something that is different than runs from fielding for some reason. And then the problem that we really run into here, when we look down here on standard fielding, is we have all of these different things that we can sort by. We can sort by total zone, total fielding runs above average or below average this time. And we see that Jeter not only is not the worst, his total here ends up being minus 5. So, yeah, we see that minus 27 pop up over here under RDRS, which is BIS, defensive runs saved above average. My understanding is that this is the number that comes from Baseball Info Solutions, which really doesn't like Bernie Williams for whatever reason. What did he do that was wrong that season? Minus 52 seems pretty bad. This number here instead comes from Sean Smith from baseballprojection.com. But you can see there's a huge difference, right? Because if we sort backwards by this, Jeter all of a sudden ranks as the 9th worst defender in the majors. And look at this. You have Jeter, you have Sheffield, and you have Williams, and you ask yourself, how did the Yankees ever win anything? Well, we can go take a look here at Bernie Williams and see what he actually did. And this is where stuff will become really confusing, because you'll take a look at him in the field and you'll say, okay, he had 2 errors in the outfield in 2005 and 6 assists and 234 chances. So, I mean, clearly whatever this RDRS is, that is minus 26 here, but was minus 52 here, is based on something different than these statistics, right? I don't know, man. I don't know. This looks like it's a complete mess that's been sort of slapped together with a bunch of random ratings here and random ratings there. You might wonder why in the world I worry so much about this and why I spend so much time looking at this. There are two reasons why, right? Number one is I'm not convinced that looking at these advanced metrics is any better than looking at actual fielding stats where we have measures of comparison. So the reason why Jeter has been considered to be a poor fielder is because though the raw stats look okay, when you look in terms of the runs range factor per game compared with the league range factor per game or per 9 innings compared to the league factor per 9 innings, he's below average. That's pretty clear. He's below average every single season, right? Including in 2009 when WAR likes him, right? I actually can understand that and can appreciate that and can say, yeah, he probably had a poor range factor through those years. But I mean, when we're talking about this crazy fluctuation where he's positive one year and negative the next, when we're going up here to our field, which is what WAR uses, at least from what I understand, and we're positive here in the midst of all this negative C, I'm like, why? What is it that happened? What was so different about this, right? I don't recall 2009 being the year that the 35-year-old Jeter finally got it together at short, right? Now, there are other problems with this as well, and one of the problems that you have is that what you observe with the naked eye is different than what happens on the field, right? This delves into, I think, some other questions that we have about fielding. We do recall that when Alex Rodriguez joined the Yankees, that he moved to third base instead of going to shortstop. There was a lot of debate in the sabermetric community about what would happen. You would expect that Jeter, who was aging at that time, would want to shift over to an easier defensive position, especially since he was notoriously bad as a shortstop. The fact that that didn't happen, we could say is, oh, well, this is evidence that managers just don't know what they're doing. Joe Torre didn't know anything about these advanced metrics, and he was just an idiot. Or it could be that there's some problem with the metrics themselves. And I would say that when you consider that fact along with the fact that these metrics are wildly fluctuating from year to year, that combined is probably an indication that there's some sort of problem with the metric itself. Again, when it comes to Baseball Info Solutions, this is a company that I think is still around. I'll do a quick Google search for them. Baseball Info Solutions, if it is still around, and yes, it is. It pops right up under Sports Info Solutions. They have their own proprietary databases, and the way that they calculate fielding is a proprietary thing. Well, we can go take a look at this here. There is the Fielding Bible website. They have their awards, and I'm sure that if I dug into this, I could find out a few things about runs saved, defensive runs saved, and things like that. We can buy it. I think that there are multiple volumes. Here it will tell you up to volume 5. I actually think that there have been over 6 volumes. So I think that there's more going on than we think. Oh, wow, this is through ACTA Sports. I know the guy who wrote this, Tom Stone, is actually really nice. I recommend looking at his blog. Anyway, I mean, yeah, Fielding Bible 4 came out in 2015 and so on and so forth. I mean, we could make sort of a habit out of trying to sort through this and trying to learn about it and see exactly how it is calculated. But as you can imagine, the problem that I have with using this sort of proprietary statistic is that when we're trying to have discussions together about fielding or about baseball, about value and things like that, we really need to make sure that we're on like the same fundamental page. And it's kind of off-putting when you say, well, you can get onto the same page as the rest of us, but you have to read, 5 or 6 volumes of this thing that was produced by a company, and you have to kind of know exactly what is going on the inside and how everything works and all this stuff. I mean, that's a lot to ask of somebody who's just interested in sort of having a discussion about this and trying to figure out what happens. Oh, here we go. Yeah, DRS pre-2020 as opposed to post-2020 DRS. I mean, you see the formula is constantly changing. I know that there are some people who talk about WAR and who will say, oh, well, this is a good thing. We want to have it change all the time, like the measure of GDP per capita, for example, will change from time to time. I mean, perhaps that's true. Perhaps that's what we want to do, but it's impossible for us to compare things if the basic formula that we use as the basis of comparison is constantly changing, right? And the more that I look at this and the more that I try to learn about this through what little information is available for free, the more that my head wants to explode and the more that I want to say, why don't we just use traditional fielding metrics? Why do I bring this up? Because if you're trying to make a baseball simulation game or if you're trying to play with one and figure out how it works, you kind of need to know how this stuff works, and you kind of need to know what you're looking at, right? Especially if you're looking to do something more complex than having just sort of a excellent or average or very good or poor or fair or whatever rating at each position, right? There are other ways to rate things and other ways to look at things, but we can't do much with it if everything that the experts have is proprietary and is inaccessible to the public, and it goes back to trust me, bro. And when we're doing the trust me, bro game, and I see that one measure is completely different from another, I think, why does this happen? I'll show you this again, right? Why is it like this? Why does Bernie Williams have minus 52 RDRS through that company, but through baseballprojection.com, he's only at minus 8? I mean, this is the thing. I can understand if the measures are different, but the ranking's the same. Here, the measures are different and the rankings are different. Why? Love to know what you have to think about the subject, and I'll talk with you later. Bye.